I have been chasing Bob Himler from RITE for probably 7 or 8 years. And he, like a lot of retailers, will answer me sporadically. You know, always very polite, but he always says, "Not right now, but please reach out again. I appreciate the invitation." So I reached out again, and finally we got Bob Himler from RITE. So if you've been wondering, you know, what has happened to RITE, what are they doing with private brands, we get to learn today. Bob?
That's it. That's my presentation. Making it short. Last person standing. Well, thanks everyone for sticking around. I really appreciate it. It's exciting to be here. As Chris said, we've talked a lot about me coming and participating, and it's really nice to be here. This is my first event in a lot of years, in several years, which is probably true for some other people in the audience. But it's been a great couple of days. It's been awesome to reconnect with old friends and past colleagues, and learn from all of you in the room today, and really just connect with everybody about own brands and all the exciting things that are going on. So I'm really happy to be here and excited to talk to you about RITE. You know, we haven't been out talking a lot about our own brands, but a lot has been happening at RITE with own brands. And so before we get to that, I do want to talk to you a little bit about RITE and some of the change that we're going through as an organization. We've been going through quite a transformation ourselves at the enterprise level over the last couple of years. You know, when our CEO came on board, Hayward Donegan, in March, or a little before that, 2020, she set us on a course to really redefine who we are as RITE and how we position ourselves in the healthcare industry. And we have done a great job doing that. There's been a lot of work put against it. We've really repositioned ourselves as a total healthcare company focused around whole health, and made a lot of progress. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that, but more importantly, for this show, how we're supporting that enterprise strategy through our own brand transformation. But it all starts with the customer. So when we think about our customer at RITE, we really divide that customer into 2 core targets. You know, our core target is really who we have historically positioned ourselves with and targeted. And we call that customer Judy. Judy is 55 plus years old, typically addressing multiple health concerns, polychronic oftentimes. And that customer is very important to RITE and will always be important to RITE. But as we went through our transformation and began to identify how we were going to change our company, one of the things we recognized was that we're missing Jenny. We're way under indexed, or have been historically relative to the rest of the drug, on bringing in that Gen X and millennial female shopper. We do call her Jenny. She's 25 to 49, juggling multiple responsibilities, typically a career, kids, parents, pets, a lot of responsibilities. So very busy. And always on the go. But this is a really critical consumer for us, one that we're really going after hard and is really important to our future strategy. And as we reposition ourselves, as I mentioned, we're really repositioning ourselves around whole health for life. This is what we stand for. This is our purpose. This is where we feel we can best support Judy and Jenny through their path to wellness. And so what does that mean? It really means the fusion of bringing traditional medicine together with alternative remedies to provide Jenny and Judy with that holistic approach to their wellness. We've gone through a lot of change to support that. If any of you are in a RITE market, which many of you probably are, we have 2,400 stores. You know, we've gone through a lot of change. We've completely rebranded ourselves. We have a new logo and identity, as you know. Our front end of our stores have completely been reimagined. Our store of the future is absolutely beautiful, which you see on the top right. And, you know, it's translated into an updated and upgraded assortment focused on better for you, cleaner products. And that assortment upgrade and enhancement continues today. And then the other piece is really putting the pharmacy first. We brought that pharmacist out from behind the counter in our stores of the future to really interact more directly and engaging Jenny and Judy in their journey. And then obviously focusing on digital and transforming our digital experience and meeting the consumer where they're at. So how does own brand support that enterprise strategy? So we hadn't gone through significant change in our private brand program for quite a few years. Actually, when I got there, we were just going through change, working very closely with Todd Mowdy, if those of you out in the audience know Todd. And we went through a pretty major transformation back in 2015 or so. Introduced several new brands, had a lot of legacy brands that didn't change, but brought in several new brands. But since that time, we really hadn't changed our program to any great degree. We had brands that were 10, 15 years old, which is pretty old, and they looked it. And so we were due for an upgrade, and it was a perfect time for us because our enterprise, RITE, was going through this massive positioning change. And we really wanted to make sure that our brands were positioned in line with our corporate strategy to support that. So we went down the path of reimagining our own brand portfolio and architecture and how it can best support our enterprise as well as the customer that we're going after. So what are some of the things that we wanted to look at when we started down this journey? There were several questions that we wanted to answer. One was, obviously, what are the strengths and challenges of the existing brands in our portfolio? You can see the brands on the right. We have about 13 owned brands that we own. We have other control brands in our portfolio, but these are all the brands that we actually own. So what were the strengths? What were the equities? Was there anything that was leverageable here? Were there brands that needed to go away or should go away? Were there brands that could expand further? How have consumer attitudes shifted? Are brands appropriately positioned to support the current and the future consumer target, Judy and Jenny? Are brands stretched appropriately? We had some concerns that some of our brands were stretching themselves too far across too many categories and were losing credibility with the consumer. So we wanted to test and understand that. We also thought there was opportunity for other brands to stretch further, that were too limited in the guardrails that we had placed on them. And so we wanted to understand that. And then ultimately, as I mentioned, which ones should stay, which ones should go, which ones should be created. Was there any new brand creation that we should consider to better support our strategy and attract our target customer? So it's been a long process, and it's been, I think, about 2 years that we've been going through this process. And Glenn Pfeiffer spoke a little bit earlier about the transformation at Wakefern. We've gone through a very similar process as them, so he can attest to what it takes to go through this. And I will agree with Glenn, the most difficult part was naming. So I think Glenn showed a slide where, for one of their brands, they, you had like 2,000 or 3,000 names that were generated to come up with one. We had the same thing, but across 3 brands. And so we had to generate about 7,000 names to come up with one name for 3 new brands. So it's pretty rigorous, but it's very rewarding. And we used Lippincott for the first 2 phases of this project. And then we've worked with SGK on the last 2 phases of this project. And so we're almost there. We're actually in between phase 3 and 4. We're adapting some brands, rolling them out, but we're still finishing up a couple more. I'm going to share with you some of the transformation that's going on. So one of the things we wanted to understand was equity or strength of the existing brands in our portfolio. And there was a dynamic that we threw in there that we wanted to also understand. So you see on the far right, Thrive Reinforcement. What's Thrive Reinforcement? So internally at Rite Aid, we think of our positioning of whole health as allowing consumers to thrive. And so when we looked at our brands and how much awareness they had and purchase intent, attention at shelf, perceived value, we also layered in this thrive element, which was how well do each of our brands support our enterprise strategy? And we tested that with our consumers, which was a really interesting dynamic to add. And we tested it with quite a few. So we did a pretty extensive survey across about 3,100 shoppers, Rite Aid core shoppers, competitive shoppers. And what we found was, as you would expect, we had some good, some okay, and some ugly, you know, some not so good results. We had many of our brands scored really well across all the equity dimensions, supported the Thrive positioning extremely well. And then obviously those are the brands that we wanted to understand and how we could leverage further. We had other brands that really struggled connecting with consumers. And despite all the investments we've made over the years, it was obvious that it was really time for those brands to be reconsidered and probably exited. A lot of them had low awareness, very functionally driven, no emotional connection with the consumer, and really didn't support the Thrive territories as we would have expected or wanted. And then certain brands, as we suspected, were stretching too far. And what consumers were telling us, for example, is we don't want our food brand to be the same brand as our bleach brand, right? One example. And so we rethought the guardrails that we had placed on some of our brands and understood where we needed to break those apart and probably create 2 brand propositions for those solutions versus 1. So where did we end up? So on the right here, you can see a snapshot of sort of the brands that we're retaining, those that we're retiring, and those spaces where there's new brand creation going on today. So obviously Rite Aid, our enterprise brand, that's not going anywhere. It's our biggest brand on about 1,250 SKUs in our stores, and scored very, very well in testing, as you can imagine. Simplify has been historically our opening price point brand. That's a brand that has more equity and awareness than anybody ever expected. So we're actually going to retain and reposition that brand. I'll show you some packaging on that in a minute. Thrifty is our ice cream brand. And then Home is our seasonal brand, as well as some everyday. And then Pot Town's our pet brand. So those are the brands we're retaining, but 8 brands that didn't make the cut. So that's a tough nut to swallow. You know, a lot of investments have gone into these brands over the years, and it's easy to want to keep them because they're great names. We've invested a lot, but at the end of the day, we decided that we needed to reinvest, reposition for the future. And then we're creating actually propositions in 4 or 5 new spaces. Baby, which Tugaboos is our solution today. Tugaboos is being retired. Beauty, Daylogic is our solution today, and that brand is being retired. Consumables and holistic health. So those are new brands that are being created to support our go-forward strategy. So let's take a look at what the brand transformations look like. A little show and tell. So health, our biggest brand, you can see kind of the transformation of pharmacy health over the years. This is probably, Todd, I don't even know if you know, or anybody in the audience, how old Rite Aid Pharmacy, the white bottle on the left is. Probably 15 years. Glenn, you might know? About 15 years old. That's been in our stores for 15 years. You can see the middle one, we went through that interim transformation about 3 years ago. And then you can see on the right where we ended up today. And this is the design system that you'll see across all OTC. What I wanted to point out on this is you can see how the brand has evolved, not just from a design standpoint, but from a call out and from a claims perspective. You see the free from on the top. As we, repositioned Rite Aid and we started to understand the consumers a little bit better and how it fit into this activity and process and positioning, we really wanted to drive transparency across our brands. And so we brought in this system around product attribution. And you'll see this system actually come to life across our brands as well as in our stores. So this is what we call basically our product attribute system. We have 4 territories that we think speaks to where consumers are at today. Free from, so that was what you'd expect, the exclusion of chemicals of concern. We have 8 chemicals of high concern that we don't allow in any of our private brand products. We call them the Evil 8. We've got Well-Being, Proud Planet, and Smart Choice. And so you'll see these territories that are supported by 54 product attributes. You can see how they're leveraged on shelf tags. You'll see them on shelf tags. You'll see them in store. You'll see them on packaging, on own brand. You'll see them in ad. Actually, this is driving our search and filtering on .com. So really, this is a key part of how we're going to market to drive transparency around some of these key areas of concern, but we're also leveraging it across our brands. There you can see, oops, the beauty shot, the family shot of pharmacy and how it's coming to life. A couple other things to point out on pharmacy. You'll note we did something a little bit different, and you're going to see this on another brand I'm going to show in a little bit. But we dropped the logo down to the bottom. And when we tested this concept, there was a lot of mixed emotion. Of course, everyone was like, you got to have the logo on the top. I mean, everybody has the logo on the top, right? Consumers told us we don't want the logo on the top. When we tested this against other brands and our previous design, what consumers said is it actually makes it look more premium. There's a certain elegance to that packaging when you bring that logo down, and it also helps with shoppability. When consumers are shopping, they want to be able to shop the product, right? And so this has made it much easier for them to shop, and so we ran with it, and it's been very successful. Talked about Tugaboos. Tugaboos is a brand that's also been around for 10 or 12 years, at least, maybe 15. And it was time for a change, consumers were telling us, just was not resonating with them in the same way it had. It had kind of done its time, ran its course. So we'll be folding, are in the process of folding Tugaboos into our Rite Aid pharmacy system. So this will be a tier under pharmacy. Great illustration, great call outs, claims, iconography. This is a family look, kind of a line look with that tone-on-tone green. Really turned out well. Illustration's really beautiful. This is a new territory for us, and this ladders most directly, I would say, with our repositioned enterprise, and this is our holistic health line. So I talked about the fusion of traditional medicine with alternative remedies. This really speaks to that. So this is a limited assortment line today. We see it expanding. We see this as white space and opportunity for innovation for us. But really, again, ties back to clean ingredients, plant-based, no actives, really that alternative holistic approach that many consumers are looking for today. Pawtown. So this is probably my favorite redesign of all of them. Really turned out well. Again, this is a small but growing segment for us at Rite Aid. Pet is very important for us, and we're seeing a lot of growth in it, and we're seeing a lot of growth in Pawtown and our private brands. So, here it was really about the relationship between pet parent and pet. We really wanted to bring out the liveliness of the animal, of the pet, living their best life. And really the essence of this brand is thrive together with your best friend. And so you can really see that come through the product imagery. This is really about pet being hero on this package. A lot of personality and character. And then home. Home we decided to keep. Home has a lot of awareness. This is probably our second biggest brand besides pharmacy within our portfolio. And the reason it's our second biggest brand is because this is the brand that's on all of our seasonal product. And we have a very successful, very large seasonal program at Rite Aid. But again, this brand has been around for many, many years. It was time for a refresh. You can see we've shifted the logo. Nice scripted design by Rite Aid. And this is really about crafting your home to your mood. So we brought in a lot of color in this brand. Some of the feedback we got early on when we were a little more limited on the color strategy was, it just feels like a chore. These categories, they feel like a chore. Batteries and lights and light bulbs and glue. How can we make them more exciting? I want to feel good about sort of crafting my home. So we brought in color, which really did a nice job to bring a different personality to the brand. It also helps, obviously, with differentiation on the shelf, across categories, across items, et cetera. So we flex that color where appropriate. So I talked about Simplify. Simplify is another one of those brands that we've had for a long time, under-leveraged, really strong equity, really strong awareness. Where it does play, it does very, very well. Today, this brand is a opening price point brand in our dollar shop, limited to about 20 SKUs. So we are repositioning Simplify based on what the consumers told us, and this brand actually tested the best out of all of them that I'm showing you today. This is going to be our household cleaning solution. So this brand all stands for, cleaning. You got to remember, when we did this consumer testing, it was in the middle of COVID. So, consumers' mindset shifted a lot since COVID and during COVID in terms of what they want, you know what I mean? And a clean house is one of them. They want to know it's clean. They don't want to question it. They don't want to know if maybe they got the germ or they didn't. They want to know that the product's doing the job. So we created a brand specifically for that, and that's Simplify. 3-tier program. You can see our core in the middle. That's your typical NBE. And then on the right, you can see advanced performance. And then on the left, you can see limited assortment of free and clear, which is our free from line. Find peace of mind with uncompromising clean. And then Rishi. This is not out yet. So this brand is launching late summer. I talked a little bit about Daylogic. Daylogic is our third largest brand in our portfolio, 500 SKUs. It's actually a great brand. A lot of people love Daylogic. What we heard from the consumer, though, was it was really purchased based on price. There wasn't a lot of emotion or connectivity. It was a very functional brand. And so we wanted to elevate Daylogic, or our beauty solution, to more of a fashion-forward, more connectivity with the consumer, more on trend. And so Rishi was developed, which sounds like a Japanese name or something related, which it does have that heritage, but it really stands for Real You Shine Through, which is the positioning of our beauty department at Rite Aid. It's really about inside-out beauty, and that's what this brand supports. So again, a 3-tier program. The men's line turned out, I think, awesome. I think the whole line turned out great. But you can see the men's line is a line look, that tone-on-tone blue, really rich blue with the silver accents. And you can see the middle, that is our clean performance line. So this, again, would tie back to our free-from positioning and some of the assortment optimization that we're doing to bring more free-from clean ingredient products forward. Line look, you can see we leverage that center bar to differentiate products through color, but this would be that consistent line look across all Rishi products within this tier. And then you can see our core line, aka NBE on the left, which would be our largest line in the brand. And there we flex the background color where appropriate for differentiation, category keys, national brand cues, et cetera. So that's a little sneak peek of Rite Aid and where we're taking our brands. But there's a lot of other activities, I should say, going on. I mean, we continue to focus on enhanced assortment. We've got 2,600 SKUs in our own brand portfolio today. We see that going nowhere but up. We continue to focus on our new product development, new product pipeline. We typically roll out about 300 new SKUs a year under our own brand. Innovation I talked about, especially in some of those new segments that we focused on, like holistic health, clean performance in beauty, advanced performance in household. And then product quality. One of the things that we're really proud of at Rite Aid is our product quality. We test every item, every formulation in our assortment every year. But we're also hyper-focused on cleaning up our ingredients. And so we've had a chemical policy in place for about 3 years now at Rite Aid, where we've identified 8, as I mentioned, chemicals of high concern that are restricted out of our program, and then another 54 product ingredients that we're screening for. So it's a really aggressive program. We're proud of it, and we continue to focus on that. And then I talked about expanded digital reach. So that's all I got. Appreciate your guys' time. Thanks for sticking around. We might have a couple minutes for questions. 26 slides. I thought I was going to have you guys here for an hour, but I got done in 25 minutes. That's pretty good.
That's perfect, man. That's awesome. It's great to see you guys kind of emerge out of the last years of lots of stuff.
A lot of change at Rite Aid, but it's been exciting change. Not always fun, but we're going down a great path. Like I said, the transformation that's going on with the company as well as own brands. There's a lot of excitement at Rite Aid right now. So
absolutely. So questions for Bob? Anybody? Carol?
So curious, Bob, why on the packaging? So obviously the corporate logo the store logo has changed with the icon and Rite Aid, but then on the private brand packaging, it's just the icon. Why not have Rite Aid on the packaging?
On the health.
On the health.
It's a really good question. I have an answer. It's not that exciting, and it's not that strategic, but I do have an answer. So I showed you that interim design, right? And our brand logo, our lockup, used to be a stacked logo, right? Where it had the shield and Rite Aid underneath. And we designed that health system around that logo. And halfway through the redesign, we changed our logo. So the question was, do we scrap the entire design that's halfway done on pharmacy, or do we do a minor update to accommodate the new brand mark and the new palette and the new, etc., design elements? We opted for the latter. And as hard as we tried, the new lockup didn't work well with the package design system that we created around it. So we chose to not put Rite Aid on the front. It's just on the back panel on the distribution clause. And the reason we chose it wasn't just because it was the easy way out. We really felt there's so much marketing and energy going on against Rite Aid, and the most recognized part of the Rite Aid identity is that shield. So we really felt if we are doing our job correctly in terms of the new brand launch and relaunch, consumers are going to recognize that shield, and they should. And so we should be comfortable just putting that shield on there versus putting Rite Aid on there. And so a couple different reasons, but that's really the story behind it.
And you're not the only one doing it. You're brave to do it that early. Target took them 30 years. Publix just now flipped over to just their icon.
Yeah. And the more we talked about it internally, the more we liked it because it simplified the look. It really leveraged the shield, which is really, again, the most recognized part of that identity that at least we want. And so the more we talked about it internally, the more we liked it. And so we went with it.
Very good. Anybody else? Frederick?
You promised me a softball. Now, no hard questions.
So Bob, we all know COVID, even before COVID, people have, a greater segment of people are looking into self-health, right? Not necessarily going for hard medicine, but vitamin, nutraceutical, etc. How has this evolved since COVID? Have you seen a big spike? And now that COVID is on the down, is that going down? Or how? Give us a little bit of an overview of that category.
Sounds like he threw you a holistic health.
Yeah, which categories again? I think it was,
Well, the nutraceutical, right? The vitamin supplement.
Yeah, we're still seeing vitamins has continued to be on fire. I mean, it's continues to be elevated. Our biggest issue with vitamins is supply chain, which I'm sure a lot of folks in the room have similar issues. So, but from a consumer demand standpoint, a lot of those categories have remained elevated. A lot haven't. Obviously, PPE, continues to sell more than it did pre-COVID, but not where it did a year ago. So we're seeing some significant shifts and declines in certain categories. Obviously, masks and gloves, we're seeing that trail off, not all the way, but we're seeing that start to trail off quite a bit. Vitamins, though, immunity, some of these, products and categories where consumers really spike the demand to really, position themselves against COVID for better immunity. We're seeing that continue to be elevated, especially vitamin C, some of your key nutritionals.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah.
Did you have a question?
Your new store format looks really great. What's the timing on that? When would we be able to see something?
Well, I don't have a number for you. We do have quite a few stores of the future already up. I don't have a list with me in terms of where they're at, but if you shoot me a note, I can get you a list. But they're up now. They're rolling out, not as fast as we originally planned, but they are rolling out. I want to say we have like 50 plus up right now.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not a cheap
No, it's not a cheap proposition.
No.
Hi, my
Hi.
name's Gabrielle. I work for a B2B dental distribution company, and we're going through a similar process where we're
Okay.
transforming our existing private label brands to brands that can stand on their own. So 2 questions I have. One is, did you do any sort of messaging to your shoppers? This will now be that. I'd be interested to learn more about that kind of transformation, communication plan. And then the other one, which is kind of similar, is one thing we struggle with is how do we transition out the old products, right, the logistics, and then get the new products in kind of all at once. So did you kind of have a percentage you're working with, or if you could just share a little bit about that story too?
Yeah.
It's things that we're going through, and I would be interested in
Both-
hearing what you've learned.
Both good questions. So on the first one, in terms of the transition and how we're communicating that to consumers, we're in the process of building that plan now. I mean, we typically go through soft conversions. Like we call them flow-throughs. And so we don't do hard conversions at Rite Aid. There's just too many SKUs, too much inventory to work through, and too much markdown. It just doesn't make sense financially. So we typically flow through over time, which makes the communication to the consumer difficult, right? And so what we typically will do, and what we're doing this time, is we're waiting till we have, we can activate in our digital channels pretty easily. I mean, so online, that's not an issue. We're starting to do that now. But in store, we wait till we have kind of critical mass against some of these key brands before we really start hitting it hard. And it all is based on that soft conversion. So there's a lot of variables that come into play, from obviously getting the product designed and developed, to working through your existing inventory, to getting the new stuff on the shelf. And so it's more art than science, I would say, doing it that way. And so we're always trying to time it. I have a flow chart that shows exactly when I think all the brands are going to hit the shelf, and every month I'm like moving it back. So it's very hard to do unless you do a really hard conversion. But we are doing it in our digital channels, online on product pages. We're communicating it. Box stuffers, when consumers are ordering product. And it's important because it's interesting. So pharmacy is furthest down this transition, path. I think we have about 500 SKUs now that are to shelf or shipping that we've confirmed. And we started getting some feedback from some consumers, because the other trick the challenge we've had is, in an online world, when do you change that product image online, right? If they're still seeing the old, do you put the new one on there, or do you wait till everyone's seeing the new? And so that's a little bit of an art too. And so we have a huge business on Amazon. We have a lot of SKUs on Amazon right now on Marketplace. And so we do a big business on Amazon with our pharmacy brand. And we started getting feedback from consumers, because what they saw on the product page was the old packaging. What they got in the mail was the new packaging, because it had started shipping before we flipped the image. And they thought it was a Packer label. They were customer complaints. They were giving it like 0 stars because they got some random brand they didn't recognize.
Stuff, yeah.
So that communication is really critical. So we've kind of done an about face and developed some strategies to update that imagery really quickly as we can. So we're satisfying that consumer. But I don't have a good answer, but we're working on it. It's hard.
The other thing I can tell you, because I don't work for a retailer but look at unaided awareness, not aided awareness. So aided says, have you heard of this? What do you think of this? And they have to respond to you. Right. Unaided says, what brands can you name in this category? There are very, very few private brands in this world that have more than a couple of points of unaided awareness.
Yeah.
You probably don't have as much value in those names as you think you do. Not to be mean, but figure it out, because you may not need to communicate some of those at all, and some of them you may really need to communicate to make sure you don't lose something.
Any more questions? Nobody?
No.
All right.
Bob, thank you for being the very last one and wrapping it
Tough
up.
spot. Thank you. Thanks everyone for sticking around.
I appreciate it.